The word tipping or gratuities can have a wonderful ring in the ears. For those in hospitality, hairdressing and many other customer-serving professions, it's a thank you and a sign that someone's service or work has been much appreciated. But how much do you leave when you don't know where and to whom your money is going? Let's bring in a man who's worked at the very top of society. He is etiquette expert, former Royal Butler, I'll have you know, Grant Harrold. Morning, Grant.
Good morning, sir.
And you worked for Prince Charles, amongst others?
I did, absolutely.
Does he tip?
Oh, he's a fantastic tipper.
Is he?
I think the thing is, when it comes to tipping, I was thinking the poor Carson be turning his grave here in this discussion. In private homes, tipping's very much part of what happens. I mean, the reality is, working for the royal family, they don't directly tip you, but it's more when you have guests that come and stay in these kind of big homes. They're the ones that normally do the tip. And if you didn't get a tip, then you would kind of assume you might have done something wrong.
So you've obviously worked for the royal family. You've been at many of their dues, but also I know now that you go and work in country houses, estates, and so on. They're having a big party. You'll be there with your team. And does somebody come around at the end with a sort of a brown envelope, or what happens?
No, it's not quite. Or a little kind of bag to put money in. It's not quite.
I'm just thinking of upstairs, downstairs, kind of stuff.
It's not quite like that. No, the thing is, if it's a dinner party or something, you wouldn't expect anyone to give you any kind of tip out of any kind. It's more if there's guests that stay for a weekend. So when you see these kind of Gosford parks or upstairs, downstairs, or remains of the day, and you see the weekends that guests go and spend for maybe 2 or 3 nights, at the end of that, they'll then leave an envelope or very discreetly put some money into the butler's palm, and that would be to say thank you. And it would be the butler's discretion as to how he divides that up. Now, there's some butlers that I know that will divide it with just the butlers, because they'll also, the person giving the gratuity will also give it to the housekeeping team, and the housekeeping team will then divide it amongst the housekeepers, and then some money might also be given to the kitchen staff. So it gets divided that way. It's a personal thing as to how each house wants to do it.
Yeah, there's front of house and back of house. And actually, let me put this, Matt has texted us. He says, I work in the catering trade. Tips have always been a massive issue between staff front and staff back of house. We all work hard to provide the best for our customers as a team together. Tips by cash can go just to the waitress and sometimes a percentage to the kitchen. Electronic tips are split evenly to all staff on hours worked in pay packet, so taxed and a lot fairer. But he says receiving a tip to the kitchen does make you feel appreciated and that you're doing a good job. And Matt also says, great show, thank you, Matt. But it's a big issue, Grant, obviously, in the service community.
Well, and he's quite right. I mean, the reality is, these establishments, how would they run without the kitchen? There'd be no job for the people at the front of the house if it wasn't for the people in the kitchen. So they should be shared equally. As I said to you, some people will give others, some will get more, some will get less. I'm a huge believer it should be split equally across the board. Everyone should get the same, because it's a team effort. In my teams that I was lucky enough to run over the years, I would always make sure that everyone got the same. Otherwise, it was a bit unfair, because everybody was doing something to make that weekend a success.
We heard from a cabbie earlier on, in fact, a couple of cabbies earlier on, you may have heard, where they were saying that the well-dressed people going to the posh addresses don't tip, and the people going to the poor areas do. The converse of that, a friend of mine was a director of golf at quite a famous club, and he would have big name people come to play the course and would ask if he would play with them, because he was the pro. They would tip him £1,000, £1,500, £2,000, honestly, just to play around a golf with them. These are very wealthy. In fact, one of them used to own Manchester United and is a horse racing, very famous horse racing owner. So in your experience, do the posh people tip more or less?
Well, the funny thing is about that is I've always thought that the, let's say, old money are very good at the kind of the tipping, because they've been doing it for centuries. I think what might be happening is, if I can use the term new money, maybe they don't quite understand. Maybe they maybe don't think the same way. And at the same time, if they do tip, it can maybe be rather extreme, because I have heard people getting unusual amounts of money when it comes to tipping. But then it's a personal choice. As one of your callers said, if he gets good service, then he will tip, and obviously if he doesn't. Well, the interesting thing about that is the same, that if you've felt you've had a good service, you might have a standard amount that you give, but if you feel that you've had amazing service or beyond the call of duty, then then what can you put the limit at? You could give whatever you feel is adequate.
I'd love to know, Grant, if you're able to tell us, are there sanctions that staff take against those who don't tip? Are there things you put in the bed or their evening tea or whatever? I mean, can stuff go wrong for folk?
The butler's putting booby traps into the beds. Isn't that's a sitcom? No, I mean, I'd love that idea, actually. No, the reality
Oh, sorry, I spilt hot coffee in your lap.
The reality is, no, of course not. I mean, I worked in a hotel many years ago when I was learning about the industry as well as Butler, and I want to understand the hotel industry. And I won't say that if you upset the kind of staff, there was one or two things I used to kind of question. So I think the reality is that behind the scenes, I mean, hopefully these days that people wouldn't take something out if they're not given a tip, because it'd be completely wrong. But I think we shouldn't worry about that. I think the reality is, as long as we're polite and kind to the people that are looking after you, that's what matters. As far as the tip, gratuity, it's entirely down to your discretion. And remember, there's normally the 10%, but of course, it's a personal thing. You might feel that it wasn't a great service, but you want to leave something for the others, or you want to go that little bit extra.
And what is your definition of good service, Grant? Good
service is really, it comes down to being friendly, and if I'm doing it, if I'm looking after somebody, I want to make sure that they have they enjoy the meal, they're comfortable, they have a lovely experience, and it's been friendly. It's a smile. I mean, how many times do you go out now and the people don't even, they either kind of ignore you, they don't give you eye contact. That's some of the big
don't
things.
You? Sometimes you go to a restaurant and someone's so miserable, you think, why are you in this business?
Exactly. And that's what I mean. It's not just about how quickly the food comes out, of how hot it is, how cold it is. It's also down to how they are with you. Do they make you feel welcome? Are they friendly? Do they have a very, what I call, light conversation? Nothing too deep, but a light conversation. It's those kind of things. I think it all should come down to that.
I can't resist asking you one final question. I hope you don't mind, because we debated last Wednesday on the show, should Camilla be Queen? And you've worked for Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall. What's she like?
She's wonderful. I think this is what's difficult. Of course, I'm biased because I've worked for her, so I know her. I know what she's like as a person and as a human being, and I know how kind she is. It's a very difficult discussion because there's obviously many different views. We'll get different generations that see things differently, quite rightly. I mean, obviously everyone's got entitled to their view. From a personal point of view, I just know how kind and caring she is, and would she make a good queen? Of course she would, but of course that's not to ever kind of decide. It'll be down to the future, won't it? We'll see what happens.
And Grant, without giving too much away, is she the kind of person that might tip?
Oh, I hope so. I'm sure she would. No, she's very kind. I'm convinced she would. I'd be very shocked if anyone said that she went and stayed for a weekend and didn't get a tip.
Good to know, sir. Good to know. Grant, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Grant Harrold, etiquette expert and royal butler. Right.